Jonah answers, I am a Hebrew. That is, I am a Shemite, a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I worship the Lord. Notice that L-O-R-D are all in capitals. That's a covenant name of God. And he says, I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the land and the sea. You get that? Jonah knows God theologically, and he even seems to know God relationally. But even though he knows God, he's in rebellion against the very God that he says he worships. I don't know about you, but I can almost see a light bulb come on over Jonah's head. You ever had one of those light bulb moments where all of a sudden you get it? Oh, God made the earth and the heavens, and he made the sea. What was I doing thinking I could ever get away from God by going on the sea? Verse 10 says, this terrified them. This terrified all the sailors. And they asked, what have you done? And that's, in the English, that's equivalent to, what were you thinking? What were you thinking when you did this? Because they knew he was running away from the Lord, because he'd already told them. Here's the sad thing about this story. The only one that actually knew the one true God was the cause of the trouble on this ship. They were on the same ship with a disobedient child of God. Maybe someone here lives with a Jonah. Or maybe you are a Jonah. In the same family with, on the same job with, in the same church, on the same team, in the same class at school. So verse 11 says, the sea was getting rougher and rougher. So they asked him, what should we do to make the sea calm down for you? What should we do to solve this problem? See, here's the thing. The sailors knew the problem. It was a no-brainer. They were in the midst of a terrible storm. Now they know the problem. Jonah, disobedient prophet. But they don't know the solution. Now that's important to understand. A lot of false religions can tell you what's wrong with America. A lot of people can tell you what's wrong with America. They can assess our problems pretty well, but they don't know the solution. And so let's listen to Jonah's answer. And as we listen to his answer, first of all, let's look at what he does not do. First of all, he does not get down on his knees and reach out to God in confession and repentance. He doesn't do that. Secondly, he does not ask God for forgiveness. And thirdly, he does not say, okay, Lord, I'll go to Nineveh. I'll do what you called me to do in the first place. So hardened is he at this point against the will of God that he is going to give an answer that really blows my mind. See, if Jonah had repented, if Jonah had asked for God's forgiveness, I'm sure the sea would have calmed right there. But rather than ask for forgiveness, he goes straight on against God's will. And here's his answer in verse 12. Pick me up and throw me into the sea, he replied, and it will become calm. For I know that it is my fault that this storm has come upon you. He'll admit his fault to men, but he won't confess it to God. Now you got to remember as you do this, we've read the book. So we know what's going to happen. But remember, Jonah has no idea what is ahead of him. He knows nothing about any miraculous rescue that's going to take place. He doesn't know anything about any whale. He acknowledges this is my fault, and he knows it's because he won't go to the Ninevites. But listen carefully. Jonah was resigned to his punishment, but not repenting of his actions. Get it? He was resigned that he was going to have to give his life, but he wasn't sorry for what he did. And so we have to understand that resignation to a problem does not equal repentance. That's important. At this point, Jonah would rather die than go to Nineveh. He doesn't like them. They're a different race. They are those people. I don't want to go to, ask me to do anything, God, but don't ask me to go to those people. I mean, he's living on the street. Or he doesn't smell good. Or, well, our race and their race don't get along. You understand where I'm going with this? Jonah does not like the Ninevites. He doesn't like the Assyrian people. He's a victim of really racial prejudice. And he at this point would rather die than go to Nineveh. He's going to change his mind. He's going to change his mind. But not until he's been to God's school of attitude adjustment. Ever been there? Ever had your attitude adjusted? Get a little thunk by God? So he has no intention of going to Nineveh. The sailors, however, don't listen to Jonah. They're not going to throw him in the sea. What if it just happens to turn out that it's not Jonah? Because everybody in that place knows, just like all of us know in this room, we got little pockets of disobedience that nobody knows about, except God. So maybe it's not Jonah, so they're not going to throw him overboard. Verse 13, instead the men did their best to row back to land. But they could not, for the sea grew even wilder than before. So these soldiers are caught, brothers and sisters, listen. These soldiers are caught in the midst of somebody else's problem. They're being whipped along with disobedient Jonah. So they know at this point they're not going back to, first of all, they're not going to Tarshish where the ticket said. Thought the ticket said fun in the sun. And they're not going back to Joppa because even when they tried to row back to land, they couldn't get there. The more they tried, the worse things got. And I love the next part of this. Look at verse 14. For the first time, listen, for the first time in any of their lives, all of these sailors pray to the same one true God. They're not praying to their idols now. In verse 14 it says, then they cried to the covenant God of Israel. That's what L-O-R-D in caps means. The Germanic pronunciation is Jehovah. The English pronunciation is Yahweh. And so they're saying to the Lord, O Lord, please do not let us die for taking this man's life. They've decided now they're going to throw him overboard. In other words, they're saying if we've misinterpreted what's going on here, and if we're throwing the wrong man into the sea, forgive us. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man, for you, Lord, have done as you pleased. We're out here in the middle of this mess. The guy that caused the problem says, throw me overboard. We're scared. We think we're doing the right thing, but I'm not real sure. So if I'm not, forgive me. In verse 15, then they took Jonah and threw him overboard, and the raging sea instantaneously, it's not in there, but that's what happened, instantaneously grew calm. The whole sea grew calm. Basically, in their minds, they're throwing Jonah overboard in an attempt to appease this angry God, but immediately upon doing so, the sea became calm, and though they do not see God, they see the results of God. Isn't that interesting? Jesus said about God, he said, the wind blows where it wills, you hear the sound thereof, but you can't tell where it's coming from or where it's going. We never have ever seen a wind.